get this untangled.
USF got another freaking field goal. They got inside the 10-yard line. Had to get a field goal again. Can't do that.
I'm so pissed that I forgot. Oh, hold on. All because I didn't bring one. Yeah, you're gonna be on the left. All right. I think we're live. And you are on the right side, so we're just gonna back up. No, you're good. You're on the right side.
Oh,
Steven's gonna be on the left. Do we want to move this? Should we like move this a little bit that way, so you have more room to stand? All right. So remember when I said if you were with us with the pregame show, I said I had all my stuff together. We were good. Everything was working great. I forgot something, so we're going one mic again. Steven's going to join us in a little bit. He's at the press conference. Thank you for tuning in to the Charge On Postgame live show. I am your host, Sean Green, alongside Nick Geddes. Steven Leonard will be joining us in just a couple of minutes. We have a lot to get to. Second Charge On Postgame live show. Let us know if the audio is good, if the video is good. I think it's looking good. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you Knights fans. Drop down in the comments below what you thought on the game. It was a good one. Me and Nick are going to give our quick, immediate thoughts on this game before Steven gets here. I'm intrigued to hear what Gus Malzahn has to say on a couple things. We're not going to get answers to some of the questions I have. But all in all, here's my thoughts. This is everything we wanted to see out of UCF in week 2. A step up in competition. It was a step up. I don't care what anybody says. It was a step up in competition. KJ looked exactly what we wanted KJ to look. I did a couple stats that I'll give later on, but KJ looked really good. I'll have to pull up the stats so we have the stats in front of us because we did not get the final box score. We are getting wet and rained on. I'm gonna move this a little bit.
I'm gonna step forward. How about that?
Yeah, we're gonna move this back. Live TV, guys, because we're getting wet. But
Yeah, there's a comment too.
Move this
We
way.
have an echo, slight echo.
Slight echo repeating. Let me try this. Let me see if this fixes it. 1 second. It would just be my luck to mic check 1 2. All right, let me know if that fixes it. If it doesn't, I apologize. I will figure it out. But no, so we got we saw everything we wanted to. In my opinion, out of KJ, he looked phenomenal. The stats won't necessarily tell you the whole story, but to be honest, I think it was the best you were gonna see out of KJ tonight. Defensively, just fast. They played fast the entire game. It was, again, we talked about it. You want to see an improvement. You want to see it continue to go from week 1 to week 2. They showed that. Love seeing some of the passes that KJ was throwing. He looked really sharp in the passing game. And then again, the running game looked incredible. So I'm looking and sounding good, boys. Thank you, Kevin. Nina, thank you. But yeah, so I don't really have many negatives, Nick, and I don't know if you do. It was everything you really wanted to see out of UCF in week 2.
If there's a negative, I'll find it, as you always try to remind me. They always say, like, in college football, the biggest improvement you see is usually week 1 to week 2. I thought that was evident last night. I know the scoreline last week was 57-3, but given the fact that there was I know it was still lopsided, 45-14. The result was never in doubt. I think this still was a pretty good step up in competition. I even told you, like, we were watching both of these teams warming up, like, it's crazy the difference in just how big these guys from Sam Houston looked as opposed to New Hampshire. So that was there, but I really thought tonight was a really, really strong effort from both sides of the ball, but especially offensively. We really talked a lot about KJ Jefferson on the pregame show, what you need to see from him. I said that he needed to be a little bit even more than marginally better, and I don't think the stats are going to say it. 12 of 15 for 169 tonight. No touchdowns, but no turnovers for KJ Jefferson. I can't really recall any time where
The one, but that wasn't his fault.
The one, and I think that wasn't really exactly his fault. He got hit as he threw. Probably need more effort from the wide out there to go get the ball, to be honest with you, so that turnover doesn't happen. But I don't really think he put the ball in harm's way. I really, really think that he made some strong throws tonight, especially to Kobe Hudson. He hit the 53-yard pass. I think it was in early fourth quarter, late third, something around there. But so a really strong effort tonight. I think we learned a little bit more about KJ Jefferson, and tonight was a step forward.
No, for sure. I kind of want to give you guys a better look, honestly. I don't think it's raining anymore. We were kind of nervous doing this, so I think I'm going to bring this back just to give you guys a nice look at the outside. I know it really doesn't matter in terms of the game, but I kind of I think we're safe with the water, so yeah. I'm going to pull us back.
Yeah, you got your weather forecast right tonight. You said it was going to stop raining.
I said it was going to stop at 10.
We got to this, and that's exactly what happened. It's perfect.
Yeah, so I think, gosh, again, if anything, I mean, that's all I wanted was the weather to stop, and it ended up going well. So give you guys a little bit better look. But no, you're 100% right. I think things to clean up. There are 100% things to clean up. I mean, Javarius Johnson, KJ gets hit. Javarius Johnson just watches the ball, so you don't want turnovers.
Well, first drive of the game, there were 4 penalties. And they were all procedural penalties on the offensive line. We even had one of my favorites. False start, everybody but the center.
Everybody but the center.
We don't get that one often, but when we do, I love it. But no, I mean, I'm sure Gus probably was going crazy on the sideline because UCF had no problem moving the ball on that first drive in particular, but they were just sort of killing themselves with the penalties. But, hey, they still made it out with 7 on that drive.
Yeah, let's go through that first drive because I think, listen, I'm going to keep mentioning KJ. KJ is going to be a big focal point of this show, but we said – you need to see something out of KJ. And that first drive, UCF did KJ 0 favors. If anything, it was like they were trying to make it harder on KJ. You had Caden Kittler hold. You had the Paul Rubelt false start. You had the delay of game on KJ, which, to be honest, I think the clock should have been bumped up after, so I don't really consider that on KJ, but it was a penalty for 5 yards. You had the false start, everybody but Kittler. And that all came in the first quarter. So that was 4 penalties in the first quarter for 25 yards. And I think that was all on the first drive, too.
Right, all
in the first drive. And KJ did it with his legs. He was making accurate balls. And I will say, I had some tweets. I want to read some tweets that I got sent later on. But somebody said, I forgot who it said, but somebody said, like, oh, KJ isn't all that we thought he was going to be, but if he plays like this. I'm like, I don't know what anybody else was watching, but I think most UCF fans, Nick, can agree that what we saw out of KJ Jefferson tonight, there was one bad pass. It was one bad pass, and it was the screen pass to, I think it was Xavier, where he just threw it really high. Besides that, KJ Jefferson was insanely accurate tonight. I don't think there was one ball that I was, besides the one to Xavier, where I was like, yikes. He looked incredibly better in all facets. Running the football, he was way more decisive than last week, and throwing the football.
Yeah, I thought they gave him some easy throws on that first drive. I mean, I mentioned a lot in the pregame show about getting Xavier Townsend the ball, and we saw a lot of end-arounds to Xavier. We saw a lot of screens to Xavier, so that was really good to see. They even let him air it out a little bit. I already mentioned the 53-yard pass that he had to Kobe Hudson, which, we saw that once in the first game, and it's like Kobe's really good in the air. and we saw that in week 1. We saw that last year, quite frankly, and we saw that there in that 53-yard pass in the third quarter. And there were some other opportunities, too. I mean, remember there in the first quarter, Sean, they went to him down the sideline, and he made a great play on the ball, but unfortunately he got called for offensive PI.
Yes.
But I still love the process of that entire play, and KJ throwing some pretty good balls and letting his top receiver haul that in. He had some good throws to Randy Pittman, especially on that first drive as well. I think that was the first completion he had in the game, and that got him going a little bit. So now, is UCF going to be, again, he threw 15 times tonight, KJ Jefferson. He threw 14 times in the first game. That is not going to be, I don't think, the standard for the rest of the season, especially when you get into Big 12 play next week. They're going to have to probably throw it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But when you have the running game that UCF has put together this year, and shout out to the offensive line, by the way. I don't want to bury the lead because I thought the offensive line was the star of the show tonight, especially in that first half. They were bullying people. The holes that R.J. Harvey had opened up for him, and Miles Montgomery and Johnny Richardson, Penny Boone, all those guys made it much easier for those guys to do those jobs because of all the efforts from the offensive line tonight. So shout out to them, but absolutely KJ is definitely going to be the guy that we're most focused on as this season goes on into the start of the season, and I thought it was a good start tonight.
I am almost done. All right. Oh, and the lights dim. Even though we know. Thank you. Look at Nick Geddes taking charge. I just had to tweet out the link. I totally forgot to do that. But let's talk about the running game. And when Steven gets back, we'll talk more about KJ because I think KJ is a huge factor of tonight. I think if you're looking ahead and looking to next week against TCU, you feel a million times more confident, which is, wow, they're trying to get us kicked out. We are staying here until at least 11:10. But no, you feel a lot more confident about KJ heading into next week. But the star of the show, and it's going to be the star of the show. It will be the star of the show. It was the star of the show tonight, was the run game. Let me pull up the stats here because I have the stats handy on the computer. 57 carries for 384 yards and 6 touchdowns. R.J. Harvey, once again.
What do you say?
I mean, 19 carries, 126 yards, 4 touchdowns. Listen, up in the press box, you're not supposed to cheer, but we were kind of clamoring for RJ to break the single-game record for most touchdowns in a single game in UCF history. It didn't happen. Gus pulled him, and the smart person was Gus Malzahn. That's smart. You pull him. You don't need him out there. The fan and everybody is like, we want him to break the record. But, listen, he's gotten what? If we do the math right, if I do math, he's gotten 30 carries on the year, over 200 whatever yards, close to 300. He's got 6 touchdowns on the year. So, I mean, he's at a point right now, and we've got Stephen Leonard coming right behind us. So, perfect. We're going to get crammed in here in a sec. We're at a point where R.J. Harvey's your clear-cut number one, but getting KJ in the run game and getting other guys in the run game is only going to make UCF way more versatile.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about.
Oh, we're gonna get Steven in. Come behind me.
Yeah, come behind him. Come behind him.
One mic this week.
Yeah.
One mic this week.
My mom's actually watching. Fun fact.
Hi, Steven's mom. So, yeah, I forgot a piece. I forgot a USB to USB-C. So now we're using one mic for this postgame show. So not perfect. I was close this week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was one thing away.
Yeah. But I was going to say about the running game, I mean, we talked a lot about the importance of having a Miles Montgomery back there and a Johnny Richardson and a Penny Boone to sort of spell R.J. Harvey all season long. And I think you're starting to see that pay dividends early on because R.J., when he gets in there, he just looks very fresh. You know, you don't have to run R.J. Harvey into the ground, especially in these games. You know, if you want to run him into the ground against, you know, Arizona or something like that, when we cross that bridge, we'll get there. Whatever. But you don't have to do that right now. I think we've got a chance to see that they have 4 capable running backs, and capable is probably putting it mildly. Yeah. They have 4 guys who look like they all could start for a lot of teams in the nation right now. But RJ definitely was the focal point. And listen, he's a 5th or 6th year running back. 6th year, right, Steven?
I think so.
Yeah, 6-year running back. I mean, we sort of expect this kind of stuff from him. There's not much more you can say about what he does. I'm sure Gus Malzahn, if he was asked about it, would probably tell you, like, what do you say about this guy at this point?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I feel like every week we're going to be talking about R.J. Harvey. It's just he's in my opinion, a top 3 back in the country. But the running game, we'll get more into running game as we go on. But, Steven, you just came from the press conference. I don't know what could be said. I don't know what was interesting that Gus might have said. But kind of give us your take or give us what was said in the press conference that maybe you found interesting.
Obviously, like, one thing was, like, the running back rotation. He talked about Penny Boone being that guy that's just starting to come along in the offense, and, like, having a guy like Penny Boone to be your fourth quarter running back is insane. Fresh. He was super fresh in the fourth quarter, and he gets that touchdown. Officially, new kickoff specialist, Evan Morris, the biggest kicker in the nation, according to Gus Malzahn. I posted on Twitter. He said it. Not that Colton Boomer is doing anything wrong, is what he said. Saving his leg. Getting him back to that freshman year where he was nearly perfect. He had the 63-yard miss, but that was it.
Yeah.
So I think those are – okay. Yeah. Those are the big things. Those are the really big things, I think, that he brought up.
Who else? Is there any players?
He didn't respond to the Deshaun Pace question.
Who asked?
Chris Boyle asked.
Chris Boyle, shout out. He was
Daytona Beach News Journal.
So he didn't respond.
He did not. He said, nah, no comment.
So we haven't got into that yet, but up in the press box, we noticed immediately. Deshaun Pace was my defensive MVP last week. He was not on the field. It was Extra Alexander. And I said, where's Deshaun Pace and why is he not on the field? Steven took out his handy-dandy phone and zoomed in and saw he was on the sideline. So we're like, okay, clearly something disciplinary. I wanted somebody to ask. Somebody did. Chris Boyle, shout out. So no answer. But at the end of the day, Deshaun Pace had a good game. He got in the game. Clearly it was something minor. But, besides that, again, this game was the epitome, we were saying. This game was the epitome of everything you wanted to see this week specifically after what we saw last week. Everything worked so good last week, but KJ was kind of The defense, you want to see them going up against a better opponent. It seemed like specifically this week was significantly better on all fronts including the quarterback. Let's talk about the defense.
One thing I asked about the defense, not to Gus, but to Mac.
Yeah.
Mac McWilliams, obviously starting cornerback, got his first interception today. He was at the podium, and I asked him about all of the new spring transfers getting involved. Nigel Leak, Sheldon Arnold, and himself. Obviously, they all had a big game. They all had turnover-worthy plays. Obviously, UCF didn't recover the fumble, but Nigel Leak forced a fumble. Mac and Sheldon got interceptions. He said, Ted Roof knows how to recruit. That's something. A lot of people questioned UCF going out and getting a bunch of players in the spring portal. They questioned whether those players can actually play. Obviously, they can.
Yeah, so I will say this. The night and day difference, I think, in the new age of college football, with transfers, especially on the defensive side of the football, you see it with Florida State. I hate to bring Florida State up, but not every transfer is created equal. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't hit. Not every player is the same. I want to temper the expectations. At the end of the day, we've played New Hampshire and Sam Houston. That is the fact. We do not know. Next week is going to be the big test. You're playing TCU on the road in your first Big 12 game. But from what we've seen, Nick, on these first 2 weeks, the players that are making the plays are not guys that were on the roster last year. It was guys that have come in this offseason and in Ted Roof's defense that are making the impact in these first 2 games.
Yeah, shout out to Ted Roof. I mean, we honestly should give a nice little golf clap to Ted Roof because, like Steven had mentioned, I think a lot of people saw that hire and went, is that really an inspiring hire at this point for a guy who's been around the block and had some good programs? Let's not throw dirt on the guy. He knows what he's doing. Clearly a lot more than any of us do. But the job that they did in the portal, like you said, you mentioned Florida State being the greatest example of that, and there's other examples too. And I go back to the comment that Nick Saban said on game day. You bring all these guys in, but if they can't play, you're SOL. Yeah. But 6 new defensive starters out of 11 are transfers. And I think every single one of them has been a hit from my estimation. Every single one of them has been a hit. And even a guy like Nigel Leak Kelly, who, had moments and flashes last week against New Hampshire, but we were probably looking to see more out of him. And he made a great impact tonight. So the transfers and especially what they've done to that linebacker room, I mean, I thought Ethan Barr, again, another solid night for him. Deshaun Pace, when he got in there, solid again. Sheldon Arnold getting a pick. Mac McWilliams getting a pick. That's been the story for this defense, is the transfers have sort of transformed it, and it looks nothing like it did last year.
No, it doesn't. And I think you look back and you look at the Kent State game, you look at Villanova, and you say, okay, they dominated the game, but you go back and you actually watch, and it's like they did, but they didn't. It just looks different. And that's why we take into account the teams we're playing, Steven. We take that into account. But there's a clear difference in the way that Ted Roof's defense is playing in these first two games compared to last year against the gimme teams, I guess.
Yeah. So last year you saw like a bend but don't break kind of defense, and then the Kent State would like go for it on fourth down and not get it. So you don't have like the same, you're not scoring against you, but you're giving up a ton of yards. You're giving up scoring chances. I don't think they got onto the UCF side of the field until the second half.
I was gonna say, I mean,
Gus said that during the presser. They had the 60-something yard trick play, but outside of that, they didn't. Their first team could not move the ball.
I'd make them run burpees for that trick play, but here you go, Nick.
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned the trick play, because I was just going to mention, like, I almost bring up you, because there's a moment in the game where you're like, I don't like the way the defense is playing. Like, and I was like,
I'll call it out. I don't care.
The first team defense was, I thought, lights out, to be honest with you. I mean, you take the trick play away, this game's, 45-7? And you want to call that busted coverage? Not really. I mean, it was just a trick play. It is what it is. I don't think anybody looked at each other and went, ooh, that was really bad. It happens. But outside of that, when they were playing just straight up 11-on-11, no gimmicks. UCF's defense, I thought, dominated their first team offense, and they should.
And again, we talked about it leading up where people were calling, I guess, us out. We were part of the, I guess, problem this week, which was giving Sam Houston too much credit and acting like Sam Houston's too good. It wasn't that. I think it didn't take a rocket scientist to look at Sam Houston tonight and say they are bigger than New Hampshire. It didn't take a rocket scientist. They looked like it on the field. But UCF didn't look, specifically the offensive line. I want to talk about the offensive line. I know that's kind of like we're going from the defense to the offense. The offensive line this season, first of all, you have the same five. I mean, we're not changing up a center we're not getting injuries, thank God right now. The offensive line, I think, is the unsung heroes of the first 2 weeks. The running game, obviously. Keeping KJ protected. They allowed the one sack. That was really the one time, Steven, that we looked at it and said, yikes, that was bad. Every other time, KJ had plenty of time, was able to get out. What can this offensive line, they looked clearly dominant against Sam Houston, and, Sam Houston is Sam Houston. They're much better than people give them credit for. But
7 sacks last week.
They had a lot of sacks last week.
They had a lot of sacks. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, or no, Rice had 7 sacks. Rice had 7 sacks.
2 sacks, 2 interceptions.
I cannot wait until I don't forget the thing so we all have a mic. This is ridiculous. That's on me. I suck. This is my bad. I'm so mad. Okay. But no, talk about the offensive line, because I think, over the last couple seasons it's up and down. But the last 2 games, specifically, they look incredible.
I think there was a big worry about Paul Rubel being the starting right tackle. I think he's been the best player for the first play of the game. He ragdolled the defensive end, and I was like, all right, okay, we're cool. Like, Paul's fine. I think he was a worry for everyone, but he's just that guy, I guess. 0 starts in 4 years or 5. 0 starts in 4 years, and now 5th year, and he's pretty good.
Keep in mind, too, we talked when we opened up the show tonight about 4 penalties on that first drive. And you don't want that. But I don't think there was any more offensive line penalties for the rest of the game, maybe. I mean, they only finished with 6 penalties total.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign. I mean, I know 4 you don't want on any drive. And they were still able to score, obviously, on that drive. But for the rest of the game, they only had 2 penalties. And obviously, last week, they had only 3 penalties, I believe. So the undisciplined play that you saw last year that Gus talked a lot about in the offseason, he had to clean, in his words, some of that crap up. I think they've done that here in these first 2 games. The offensive line's been a big part of that. You mentioned Rubel. I'll mention the guy on the other side of the line, Amari Kite.
Yeah, you're a big Amari Kite guy.
Big Amari Kite guy. I thought he was.
Who isn't?
Who isn't?
Amari Kite's a big guy.
He is a big guy, and I thought he was great tonight. And I thought Gus Malzahn, his play calling, especially in that first quarter. I mean, Gus was in his bag. He really was.
It was a little gimmicky. I'll give Casey Keeler that.
Yeah, he said he thought Gus Malzahn was just a gimmick, but he's not. They're very disciplined. There was some gimmicky.
He you can call it gimmicky, but I mean, he had Amari pulling and everything, and Amari was finishing on his guy on the other side of the line. I mean, I talked about the holes that were being opened up. I just thought Gus was really putting those guys in good situations tonight.
I will say, I don't think of anything was more beautiful tonight than the offensive lineman pulling. I mean, it looked gorgeous the way they were doing it.
One thing, Caden Kittler, he had the one holding penalty on the first drive. He is such a revelation as center. Compared to last year, it is night and day. Obviously, he started twice last year, but he got hurt.
Yeah.
Everyone outside of him last year kind of struggled. He's just he's good. Yeah.
Listen, I don't want to throw shade to any former players, but it's very nice to not have Drake Metcalf under center. I'm not trying to listen to anybody that watches this show.
I hope Drake has a great recovery. I know he he popped his Achilles in the spring, but he's supposed to come back and play guard for Virginia. So praying for a quick recovery.
Yeah, we are praying. Hey, listen, we don't want any.
He didn't fit here.
You just made me look mean on this show. I don't want any injuries.
Listen,
he's playing a different position as well.
Guard.
There is he's a very good guard.
We can only judge what they do on the field in a UCF uniform, okay? And Drake Metcalf did not play well last year. That's just calling it out. And Caden Kittler, for the stability that he provides, again, hopefully stays healthy. Center is a very, very important position. I've learned that as I've continued to watch football over the years. That center is very important, and Caden Kittler has done a great job.
I'm going to try and get to some comments. We have 49 people watching. Thank you, especially with this rinky-dink setup that I've got going for us. So I appreciate all of you tuning in. If I can get the comments up, I want to get them up. We're going to do. Yeah, you could probably get them up. I don't know why my phone's not working. That is very small text, so I can zoom in.
Phone over there 'cause I'm a
It's okay.
I know. I was saying there's someone's mentioned that Bula did his job last year. So
We didn't mention Bula.
Bula did his job.
I don't know. Who said Bula did his job?
There was a lot of center.
Okay, so Hidden Hawaiian, I want to bring this up. And this is not – listen, we're going to last year.
Bula.
He said Bula did his thing, though, last season. Bula had the highest PFF grade last season on offensive line. You can't just look at PFF. I get PFF. PFF is something. It's something to look at.
Everything.
It is not everything.
The pass blocking grades are really good on PFF. Run blocking grades, not so much.
No. So don't look at PFF. Listen, look at PFF, but then watch the game with your eyes. It doesn't take – if you just watch football all the time, which everybody in this post-game live show watches football, Bula was not good. But Caden Kittler, very good. All right, so do we have any negatives? I have a negative. I do. I have two, actually. Two negatives. Two negatives. Negative Sean is actually coming out.
Sheldon Arnold took a play off, and it allowed for the trickery Noah Smith or Noah Brown or whatever his name is. I think it's Noah Smith. I thought it was right. I was right. Noah Smith throwing that 60-something yard touchdown. He took the play off. That's a bad play, but he had a great game outside of that, so not going to be too hard.
Burpees for the entire team tomorrow. They probably practice tomorrow. Yep, so burpees. Nick, do you have any negatives?
I don't want to call it a negative because I thought he did solid work.
When you say that, it's definitely a negative.
Well, I thought he did solid work in the run game defensively. But I don't think we're seeing enough out of your number one pass rusher, and that's Malachi Lawrence. There was a moment there, or there was probably about a couple drives there where I just concentrated on Malachi because I wanted to see how some of these pass rush reps were looking. He wasn't really making an impact. This is just calling it out. And, I mean, I don't want to call it a negative because, like, you had mentioned to me there, like, he was doing good in run defense and stuff like that. But as we get going, you want to see him flash a little bit more because we saw him flash last year, obviously, and now you want to see that continue to go up. I don't think I've seen that so far through 2 games and obviously a week against weak competition as well. So it's just something I'm monitoring.
Something to watch. He did take that step up when conference play came. So maybe he's just a Big 12 guy.
That's fine. That's fine with me. I'd rather Malachi Lawrence perform in Big 12 play than against Sam Houston State and New Hampshire. So that's why I don't want to call it a negative necessarily. It's just an observation.
No, and I would agree. But last week we were talking about the edges and they were okay. The backup edges were way better in Caven Collin, Isaiah Nixon. Today, Nigel E. Kelly showed up, and we'll talk about our MVPs and stuff. He's definitely one of our MVPs. He was incredible. But yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't call it a negative, but you definitely want to see more. It kind of gives me flashbacks last year of the starter. is like, is he him? And then the backups come in and they perform better. So it's 2 weeks. Just like you can't, I want to say we're very positive, but it's Sam Houston. I'm going to pull the same card I pulled last week because it is Sam Houston. It was a step up. You did what you were supposed to do. But at the end of the day, you're not going to know until next week. Because next week you're playing TCU and Malachi can come out and have 2 sacks. And it's like, okay, he just played against good competition.
Isaiah Nixon, really good again. Isaiah Nixon stock rising.
Yeah, he's going to be good. What a steal. A big-time steal from last year, right? That was last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so him getting reps early, John Walker should be coming back relatively soon, we hope. But, no, he's coming in clutch. I'm loving the edges specifically.
I was going to say, I think the Dalen Dotson experiment inside is working. It's working. Now, I find it hard to judge the backup sometimes in these games because they're coming into the fourth quarter. Yeah. You know, that offensive line has been worked over for 3 quarters. And so I would expect the UCF backups to kind of have a lot of success. But, again, it's a very encouraging sign because you just need depth behind the top 2 guys with John Walker out. And I think Dalen Dotson, he got in there. I think he had 4 tackles on the first 2 series he got in there.
And another big thing, obviously, his size was a big concern. Sam Houston's not small on the offensive line. They have decent size as their starters. He looked fine.
I do have 2 negatives.
Okay.
I do have 2.
Negative.
I can't even remember the one.
Okay. So you have 1 negative.
So technically 1 negative. And I mentioned it to you guys, and you guys told me I was crazy.
Oh,
You are.
Okay. You're
The pass listen, I'm just going to call it like I see it. I'm not saying it's bad. The pass defense inside, like within 10 yards, does look a little shaky. I'm not saying, and we'll see. We'll see as the weeks go on. I am very intrigued to see how they play. The run defense looks great, which, to be honest, I'm expecting it to be, especially against teams like this. They played really good against the run last season against Kent State and Villanova. The pass defense did look a little shaky. Now, you won't see it by the stats, just like you won't see with KJ by his stats that he had a really good passing day, right? I'm just saying at some points it did look a little shaky. Brandon Adams looked a little shaky at times, right? I will let you rebuttal, but I will say it did look a little shaky. It should be good, though. I'm not really too nervous about it. I'm just saying it looks shaky.
I want to point out that they got over half of their yards outside of the trick play when UCF went to prevent defense.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a reason that they were getting a lot of underneath stuff, is all I'm saying.
100%. I'm just saying I'm just watching the way that they're playing it, especially early in the game. I think it wasn't necessary. I don't really care about the late game stuff, which I think you guys were like, oh, Sean, it's late. Nothing matters right now. And I'm like,
only reacting to the late stuff.
This was the only time in the press box. I sat next to you up there for 5 hours tonight and 3 and change in that game. And the only time you were talking about the pass defense, and you can back me up, Steven, was in the fourth quarter.
It was in the fourth.
I said
it was in the fourth quarter.
I said it early.
When you're talking to me when Chasen Johnson's out there and Traquan Fagans is out there, I don't care. Say it with me. I don't care.
Traquan Fagans looked fine.
He looked fine, contrary to what Sean thought. And also, there was a backup quarterback that came in the game, whose name is escaping me right now. Something Bauer. I can't get the...
Jace Bauer.
Jace Bauer. I almost said Nick Bauer.
I think they played the third one, too.
No, they played 3. They had 3 people throw a pass, but one was a receiver.
Yeah. It was the backup quarterback playing the UCF backups, who in most games are not going to touch the field. I do not care.
Threes. Like, the UCF 3s were out there against the backups.
Speaking of UCF 3s, I'm so upset that I don't... You already know. I'm so upset. I talked him up last week.
I'm buying you a jersey.
I talked him up last week about how he was my favorite player on this team. And I don't think he got 1 snap tonight. I'm talking about Keyshawn Hudson. Big boy Keyshawn Hudson. Tyreek got in there. That's good for him. But there was no Keyshawn Hudson tonight, who just looks like he's having a fun. He was rolling around against New Hampshire. He was really getting in it. And he wasn't out there tonight. And I was very disappointed in that. So that's my negative of the game, actually.
And I'm going to be honest, you're probably not going to see him for the rest of the year. So, maybe.
You know who my favorite backup player on the entire team is? Exery Alexander. He is a starting quality player. I understand Deshaun. He started the game, but Deshaun Pace was held out for the first drive for unknown circumstances. I'm not going to speculate. He is just unbelievable. Obviously, he was FCS All-American, but he's unbelievable.
No, he's good. Listen, that punishment, man, is a hardcore punishment. One series against Sam Houston, he's really going to learn. That's all I'm going to say.
Blow this one out of proportion this week.
Yeah. So let's read some of your comments before we give our MVPs. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Spare Room Films, KJ looked good. I feel much better now than I did last week. Would like to see them finish a red zone drive late in the game, even if they are up by a mile. That is 2 straight weeks that at the end of the game we're like, one more would feel nice, and they don't do it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Backups. Jakari.
I'm personally very frustrated with Gus Malzahn for not giving R.J. Harvey a 5th touchdown. I was not here for that, but, like, you got to give him a 5th touchdown. He didn't even mention that he, like, tied the record. Like, he just didn't care. Like, I know R.J. doesn't care. R.J. just wants to play football, but.
You know, I was going to say, actually, I do want to point this out real quick. And it hasn't mattered, but it's interesting. Who's the 3rd wide receiver on this football team?
It's supposed to be. It's Trent Whittemore. It's very clearly Trent Whittemore.
It's very clearly Trent Whittemore, but I think he has 1 target through 2 games. And I don't think we've been impressed yet with Jacoby Jones. We're not very impressed with Javarius Johnson.
You want a negative? Javarius Johnson. Yeah. The turnover is 100% on his. He just stands there. Yeah. He needs to attack the ball, try to catch it, and then attack it once it hits the ground. But that's besides the point. He also had a play where he probably should have got the first down.
Oh, I do have my negative. It just popped. And I don't even want to come to you for rebuttals. We're going to move on after. I want to see some sacks. I know it doesn't matter in the grand scheme. They're going to get mad at me. I get it. I love the pressure. So the sacks, they'll come. But I do want to see, a sack extra here or there.
This isn't fantasy football, Sean.
I get it. Hey, listen, I know it's not fantasy football. I just want to see some sacks, man. That's it. But think about it. My negative's so small. It's such a small negative. So I can throw it out there.
With such conviction.
It's
you're
not
so
a negative,
bothered.
is the issue.
It's my negative. So, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying it's my negative. And we're going to stick to it. All right, let's go through a good chunk of these comments so we can get to our MVPs. And we don't really have many negative players. I think we have our bad offensive player. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We have Javarius. That's basically it. But we'll see if we hate some. Not hate. We'll see if some guys are. It is a mean word. I caught myself.
Javarius.
No, I don't hate Javarius.
Bad game.
He did play tonight.
Yeah, no, that's
I think he's a good player too. I just think he had a bad game.
Yeah, I think he can help. I think he can help the guys. All right, Zachary Foster, Sam Houston's defensive line was cooked all night. Nothing much else to say. Yeah, the offensive line played great. Defensive line on Sam Houston just looked overmatched. Corey, team has the potential to be deadly. Honestly, pretty sloppy and still blew them out. I wouldn't consider it sloppy.
Yeah, no, I mean maybe late there was some sloppiness, but that's 2nd and 3rd team, whatever.
I think the sloppiness came in the first drive where they had 4 penalties and still scored a touchdown.
Yeah,
so
Jefferson worked it. So
didn't the UCF starting offense score on just about every drive they had on?
all but one.
All but one where they punted on 4th and 2, which you probably in a different game you probably would have gone for it.
And the punt ended up at the 6-yard line, so I think you're fine.
Mackie 315 said a little bit of frustration on sidelines with Johnny and Boone. I did not see that. I'll go back and watch. I didn't see any frustration, but
you might have seen some from Johnny. I know. I was looking with my phone at the sideline for a bit of the game. Saw Penny. He was pretty locked in all game. So,
which credit to Penny, because to be completely honest, for Penny Boone to get as much talk as he's gotten this offseason, to be basically RB4. I know to Steven he is still RB3. We're not going to get – that could be a 30-minute conversation. But to basically be RB4, get in at the end of the game, and still not put your head down, just work, credit. And he's going to help. Like you said, Gus Malzahn mentioned it. He's going to help, but it's good for him not to make it a big deal.
And I was going to say, the fact that you have the ability to send him out there in the 4th quarter of these ball games, I mean, you talk about the ability to wear down opponents. I mean, I think Penny has sort of that more physical, rough style, right? 240. Yeah, 240 for a reason. So, I mean, I think he's a real weapon to use late in ball games against some of these good teams.
Yep. BL Carey and KJ definitely made me feel better heading into TCU. Yeah, we talked about KJ a lot. He looked good tonight. I mean, he looked really good. No complaints out of KJ Jefferson. Kevin Suarez, the running game is really going to wear down opposing defenses as the games go on. Is Boone RB4? I did not know that was... he is RB4.
Okay. So that's your burner account?
It's not my burner account. There's some burner accounts.
A little bit on your phone. I think that might be your burner.
Boone is RB4. But in my book, here's what I'll say. Steven believes he's RB3 because technically Johnny is a...
He's been playing wide receiver. He's not lined up a single snap at running back outside of the fourth quarter against New Hampshire. He is not lined up at running back.
Yes, but he is listed as a running back, so technically Penny Boone is RB4. But I don't think he's going to be RB4 as the weeks go on. They are going to find... I do not know what that is. That's your phone.
My girlfriend is calling me. That is...
Oh, it's a good ringtone. Okay, Mackey 315 defense is more aggressive this year than last season. Much improved. We talked about it. We'll see next week. Next week's going to be huge. Can you shut down TCU's offense like you shut down these teams? I don't think it's going to be as dominant, but we're going to really see what this defense is made of moving forward. RTAX 84Z, much improvement on the quarterback. Running game is a monster, feeling better. Now to see how we perform on the road. Let's quickly talk about that before we get to our MVPs and kind of read kind of the sum of these. Going on the road. Last year was Boise State. Had to go pretty far. Here you're going to TCU, which, not trying to call out TCU, one of the lesser road environments that you could go on in the Big 12, in my opinion.
I hope it's a really good environment. I'm going to be there, so I hope Fort Worth is nice.
For your sake, I hope it's nice. How do we think this team fares? I know this is a greater conversation. You won't know until it happens, but Nick, I'll go to you first. Do you think this team is built to go on the road and take it on the road?
I mean, if we're just basing it off what I've seen in the first two games, I do have a pretty good level of confidence at the moment. I mean, some of the concerns that I had going into the season so far, I think have been kind of put away against this level of competition. I don't think TCU is a great football team, to be honest with you. Don't think they haven't been tested. I mean, they played, I think, Long Island today, and they shut them out as they should. So I think it's going to be as much of a test as it's going to be for UCF. I think it's going to be a really big test for UCF, and I know TCU loves to throw the football, so that's going to be a first. We're going to really see this defensive backfield truly tested next week, and I think that's what I'm going to be looking forward to.
Yeah, I think saying that you're going to be able to test the defense backs, I think that's a key for this week. Something that I think a lot of people have said over the years, I don't know who came up with the quote, running game and defense travels. UCF has a good running game, he has a good defense, so if that can travel, I think they can do whatever. The one concern is outside of that Boise State game, I think they lost all of their road games, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, they were in some close ones. Like, I mean, the Oklahoma game, the Texas Tech game, they should have won. The Kansas State game they were in. The Kansas one was a complete just no-show from the entire team.
It's going to be a key for them to actually. It's going to be a key for them to actually win on the road and win convincingly. Because TCU, like you said, not really the best team. They were in a dogfight with Stanford last week. I know Stanford pulled away from Cal Poly, but if you're Stanford, you can't be in a game with Cal Poly.
I was deleting some comments. I apologize.
I saw those.
Yeah, I had to delete some comments, so I had to log into an account.
Cannot be read on this show.
We ain't gonna read it on this show. I'll say that. But some might. Okay, I'm not gonna get into it. No. So TCU. Yeah, we're not gonna get into TCU. But I will say, like I said before on the pregame show, they do play a lot. Sam Houston's offense does remind me a lot of TCU. It does. They do run a lot of misdirection. I guess a lot of like UCF. But we'll see. We'll see how that travels. We'll talk about it on the postgame pod, but also the pregame pod for TCU. Let's read a couple more to get out of here, and we'll go quick. Devin said it'll be fun to see the duo of Nigel Kelly and Malachi Lawrence feast on the Big 12 opposition. 100%. They're going to feast. Spare Room Films, they will be underdogs going to TCU. Good. Keep sleepwalking on UCF, folks. I don't think they're going to be underdogs. They might.
They might be like 1.5, yeah.
Yeah, it's a toss-up. Caden Carter, so happy to see Boomer hit that 50-yard field goal. Looks like he's back to himself. We could have got into Boomer. That's huge going into next week for him to make that 50-yarder. I mean, his confidence should be high.
He's back. He also doesn't have to deal with the kicking off anymore, it appears. So
Evan booted it too, by the way.
He put it out of the end zone.
That thing went all the way over the end over here through the end zone. Almost hit somebody in the cabana.
Yeah. It probably ended up in this cabana.
I mean,
we are standing on the precipice of history right now. Evan
tight
Morris's
end.
first kickoff in a UCF uniform landed in this very cabana.
Not first kickoff though. Not first
I
kickoff.
said it
Very
was
important.
He made it.
Very important designation there.
Because you smartened me up on Evan Morris's prolific kickoff career coming to UCF.
RTAX 84. Well, the backup quarterback was throwing to the backup receivers who he practices with, so they have a relationship. Plus, they are playing UCF's third string. I think you're referring to maybe Jakari. I don't know.
I think they're referring to your comment about the passing defense struggling.
Yes. Again, it was the first half too. I'm not.
It seems like everyone disagrees with you.
No, because Spare Room's film said agreed, sack the QB. So I mean, 50%.
That's a separate
50%.
Separate point.
But it's one of my points that he agreed with. So
You'll just take anything you can get tonight.
100% I'm going to take what I can get. Okay. Finally to the MVPs. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Who goes first?
He goes first on defense.
Nick. Oh, yeah, we'll talk defense first.
I go first on defense. You had first.
Oh, you go.
Oh, I
first
had
on
first pick on
defense.
defense.
My bad.
See, we're not all perfect tonight. We'll all make
Hold on.
mistakes.
Pass that back over. Me and Steven knew exactly who went first.
These are
You're
best
not
buddies
on
right now.
You're not on it tonight.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, well then.
So
I have
we're
it.
listen.
I have it
All right. Starting with defense, Nigel Kelly. He was clear cut the best player on defense tonight. I don't even have the stats on me. He forced a fumble. He had a sack. He
nearly had a touchdown.
You can make the argument. Should have had a touchdown.
Had a touchdown. That went backwards.
He was feasting tonight, and I think it was on defense when you talked last week about edges and maybe not performing as well as we'd like. To see that performance from him was huge. So, Nick, who's your defensive MVP?
It was a tough one. I thought the overall performance of the defense was strong, but in terms of picking out a standout, I mean, we had 2 interceptions tonight, but I'm going to go with X-Ray Alexander because, I mean, we didn't know, none of us knew he was going to start tonight. I'm not sure when he found out he was probably going to get in that game tonight to start, and I thought he took the opportunity and he ran with it. I mean, I think Deshaun Pace is still going to be that starting linebacker probably moving forward, but it's good to see, again, that's a room that I've sort of been having my eye on about improvement from last year to this year. I thought he played another solid game. I could have gone with Ethan Barr for this as well, but I'm going to go with X-Ray Alexander. 6 tackles, a tackles for loss. Didn't do anything noticeable to me that was wrong. I thought he played well tonight.
You just mentioned him. I'm going with Ethan Barr. I think he got credited with 1 tackle. They're going to have to edit that because he got a bunch of assists, but he was everywhere on the field. He calms the play down. When he's in, I feel it's fine. Like, they're not going to run all over them. He's just going to stop everything. It's fine.
It is back-to-back weeks where you don't notice Ethan Barr's on the field because he is stopping. Yeah.
He just closes every hole. It just there's nothing to say. He's just that guy.
You have 4 quality linebackers. 5. 5.
Josiah Pierre played, too.
Yeah, Josiah Pierre, Andrew Harris. You have 5 quality linebackers that could step in and play today, which from a year ago,
You had 1.
basically. So credit to, again, the linebackers for stepping up. Offense. Now, you had the first pick on offense, but offensive MVP.
Robert Harvey Jr. He had 4 touchdowns. He carried a lot of the offensive workload. There's some good picks. I think both of you guys have good picks. I think there's another good pick that could have went, but R.J. Harvey had a great game. I think it's just undeniable that he was the best player on the offense.
Yeah, can't argue with that. To be honest, again, like we talked about, he's, in my opinion, a top 3 back in the country. Yeah, he's showing it. I had KJ Jefferson. KJ Jefferson was my if I had the second pick, I picked KJ. In my opinion, you know what you're getting out of R.J. Harvey. KJ showed something that a lot of UCF fans needed to see. He was accurate with the football. He made really good decisions, whether to pull the ball, run the ball, hand the ball off, when to throw it. He should have had 224 yards passing. He had the Kobe face mask penalty, which he threw a beautiful ball to Kobe. It seems like their connection on deep balls is really good.
Something from the press conference, there was like a lot of talk in the offseason about those two not really getting along so much. Not getting along, but like not having that chemistry. KJ talked about them being 2 pizzas in a pod again. He hadn't brought that up since he first got here. They're back to being 2 pizzas in a pod. I think that's important. I think he had 104 yards receiving.
Should have had more if he didn't grab a guy's face mask. But again,
He also talked about that. He said they were joking around in the locker room about the face mask.
I can't believe they called that. That's like it was a dumb call. But again, then you also had the 18 on the Randy Pittman catch, but it was a hold on the center, or I think it was the center. Yeah, killer. So, no, I think KJ's phenomenal. If KJ plays like that, UCF's going to win a lot of games. I mean, you can't stop the running backs. If KJ's throwing as accurately as that, like we saw JRP last year, and he was way more accurate last year than he was the year before. There were some balls tonight where you look at it and you said, I can't remember a quarterback that threw as accurately as KJ did tonight. Now, it's one game, but you could definitely say that it was first week jitters. I tweeted that out. First week jitters, you can officially, put it to that. But, Nick, who do you have as your offensive MVP?
It's unfair to single out one of them to be the MVP, so I went with the collective offensive line. Amari Kite, Paul Rubelt, Adrian Medley, Caden Kittler, and Marcellus Marshall. They are my offensive MVPs of this game. Could have gone with Kobe. Kobe had a great game, but the difference was because Kobe's big play came when the game was already decided. That was really it. He still had a great game, all that stuff, but we know Kobe. But the offensive line, to me, you boil down to the game of football sometimes, it can be very complicated. But if you dominate the line of scrimmage, you win on the line of scrimmage, you are going to win football games more often than not. It's that simple. I'm not saying anything groundbreaking whatsoever, and I thought the offensive line did a tremendous job tonight, as I said throughout the show tonight.
All in all, really good. Can't really complain. This is everything we wanted to see out of UCF in week 2. Now you got real football. You've got real football heading into week 3. I'm excited to see kind of the talking points coming out of this week. This is going to be this game specifically is really going to make or break at least the next 2 weeks for us on Twitter, on our shows, X, whatever you want to call it. If now we get a whole week to talk about TCU, but I think if you lose to TCU, the sky's going to fall, and if you beat TCU, you're going to a Big 12 championship. I don't think there's any in between, at least with UCF fans. And we love UCF fans. I love all UCF fans, but that's how it's going to be. You're going to have a week. Hopefully, Gus said that KJ had his best week this past week. Hopefully he says that again heading into the next game. But final thoughts. Steven, I'll go with you first. Final thoughts. We're going to read some of the final comments as well, but final thoughts on this game to wrap it up into a nice little bow.
I think I had the closest score prediction of all 3 of us.
You need to go look at the pregame pod.
I think I had the closest one out of all 3 of us. I posted on Monday as well, so I had the furthest out.
What was the score prediction?
I had it 48-13. Yeah.
I said 13.
I was off by 4 total points.
Yeah, Sean, it's not my job to keep track of what your score prediction was, so I'm not going to pull the video up. I'm gonna let that one die in the waiting. I know that I said 38-17, so I was a touchdown off for UCF and a field goal. So I thought I was pretty close too, but Steven nailed it.
See, now I feel like I nailed it, but I want to go look, and I'm just not going to.
I was off by 2 points last week. I'm on a roll.
See, okay, I'll give it to you. For any Charge On fans, please, can you go look and see what my score prediction was? I forget. I will remember TCU because these games are kind of forgettable when I make score predictions. But they are. I can't remember.
Is it forgettable because you didn't get close, or is it forgettable?
I was close. I said 13-2. I can't remember.
I came up with my score prediction in the moment on Tuesday. It's Saturday, and I never forgot it. Not once.
It was it was 40 something. I think it was either 41 or 48. It was one of those two. But
don't copy me now.
I'm not. We're gonna.
You said it was 41 up in
Oh, I'm gonna. No.
Don't pretend.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna leave. We're gonna turn off the live, and if I'm correct, you're gonna tweet out, say Sean was right. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say.
Just for copying me from Monday.
I didn't even know your score prediction. I didn't know. It's not. I promise.
I told you before you filmed your live too.
That is valid. I filmed on Tuesday, so but we'll see. Maybe I didn't even say 48. Nick, final thoughts before we close this one out.
Yeah, I thought this was a big improvement from week 1 to week 2, which generally you want to see in college football, and I think you got that tonight in all facets. KJ Jefferson from week 1 to looking like a true freshman, taking the field for the first time in college football. I think tonight he actually looked like the 6-year senior that he is. He was in full control of the offense, and everything else, I think, sort of led off of that. So, yeah, we'll look ahead to next week. Obviously, the step up in competition is going to continue to grow.
Couple more comments, read through these quick. Anthony said that was how we need to use KJ as a passer. Really like the game Gus called. Don't really hear that often from UCF fans, so credit to you for actually saying it, because, yeah, Gus called a really good game. Trucker said, what do you all think about Jakari? Is he the future? TBD. Way too early.
So they also brought up, Gus brought up that Dylan Risk and Jakari were both going to get minutes today. That's what the goal was, to come into the game. Risk looked okay. Jakari looked a little bit better. He had the 26-yard run. He had a couple throws that were but
It was raining, too.
yeah, it was raining.
And he, there was a couple times he should have pulled and didn't. But, you can't really know. So we'll see. Pierre was solid. Hidden Hawaiian said Pierre was solid too at linebacker. Yep, all the linebackers were solid. Anthony also said Rice had 7 sacks last week against Sam Houston. Let's see how Kelly does against a better O-line. Very valid, very valid. Jason said Ethan Barr was solid and reliable. Facts. And then Caden Carter, perfect way to end it, said the preseason is finally over. And I think that is valid. The preseason is over. UCF now takes on TCU next week. Your final score, 45-14. UCF starts 2-0. Make sure you tune in to our post-game pod dropping tomorrow at 8 a.m. For Stephen Leonard, Nick Geddes, I am Sean Green. We will be back next week with 2 pods and a live watch-along for TCU. So thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you the next time we do pregame or postgame live shows will be a couple weeks from now against Colorado. So we will talk to you guys this week. Go Knights. Charge on. We will see you.